So today we're talking about inscne an fhocail, which is gender. So inscne means gender, and the term we need to know are firinscneach, which is masculine, and baininscneach, which is feminine. What I normally do is I get my students to learn the dairy baininscneach. So if we know the feminine endings, then we know that if it's not feminine, it's definitely masculine. So what are the feminine endings? Well, the feminine endings are og, lán, acht, íocht, or constant quail. So, for example, og, the word fuinog is feminine. And for lán, the word laurelin is feminine. It's baininscneach. For acht and íocht, this actually only applies to two-syllable words. So a word like ceacht, which is one syllable, is actually masculine, but don't worry too much about that. Most of them are feminine. So for example, a word like drámaíocht or bullaíocht are feminine. For the constant quail, this can be a bit confusing. So we see quail and we think vowels, right? Your broad vowels, your Latin are A, O, and U. Your slender vowels are I and E. They're quail. But a constant quail is a slender consonant. So a word like pell, where the last letter is a consonant, but the last vowel is slender, that's a constant quail. So I've given you a couple of examples here, which are feminine: pell, skull, and kishtin. They're all feminine. We have some exceptions to this rule, which are, so I always say shochas, which means except, or, and een. And those words are masculine. So think of the word múntóir, doctor, and even the word colleen, interestingly, is a masculine word, even though it means girl. Be careful with like kishtin is in, and that's feminine, whereas colleen is I fada in, and that's masculine. Okay, so just be cuirmach leishin. So I would ask that you take these endings down your copies and just learn them off. So be able to say them. What are the feminine endings? Og, lán, acht, íocht, constant quail, shochas, except, or, een. Once you know how to recognise the feminine word, then we need to know what happens to it after the word on. So why do we need to know it? So basically, after the word on, some of the words change. So I'm going to take a masculine word beginning with a consonant. And we know that close is masculine because it doesn't end with og, lán, acht, íocht, or constant quail. It ends with a consonant, but the last vowel is broad. And what happened there was nothing. We didn't make any change to the word close, which means courtyard. But the word kishtin, which we already discussed is feminine, that actually gets a H. So we add in our H for the feminine words. For masculine words that start with a gutsa, a vowel, we have on ospedale becomes on hospedale. So we add in a T fleshgeen. So it's a T fleshgeen here, and it's actually nothing on the other side. So the magazine is on Irish. And the last one is words that begin with S. They have their own category. So the priest is on Soggerts, and it gets nothing. Whereas on the feminine side, on Shochtan, gets a TF. So on Shochtan becomes on Shochtan with a T. The way that my lecturer in college used to say it was TSB. So think of permanent TSB. It's a T before an S, which is baininscneach. So on Shochtan. So that's the rules after on. A bit of practice, okay? So if you want to pause here and practice these and see if you can make the changes, just maybe take this down first into your copy and then have a look at these. So for on bullaíocht, you're going to go through the endings. So does bullaíocht end with og? No. Does it end with lán? No. Does it end with acht or íocht? Yes. And that's one of my feminine endings. So bullaíocht is feminine. It's baininscneach, right? So if I go back up here to my table, bullaíocht, does it begin with a consonant, a gutsa, or an S? It begins with a consonant. So I should be putting in a H. Can I put in a H with on bullaíocht? Yes, I can. So on bullaíocht becomes on bhullaíocht. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to pause the video and do the other ones and see if you get them right. And I will let you know the answers in a tree, a dó, a hen, So on Solus was firinscneach, so no change, beginning with S. On Chol, it ends with a consonant quail, so it gets a H. On Moontor, I don't know if any of you got stuck with this one, but this does end with a consonant quail, so it looks feminine. It ends with a consonant and the last vowel is I, but if we recall, that is actually one of our exceptions. Shockis, air, or ur. So Moontor is just on Moontor, so it's masculine. On Troid ends with a consonant quail, so it's feminine, so it gets a T before the S, baininscneach. On a wow. Okay, bogmid or agus déana mid cúpla cloch the Ella. So, for these ones, we need to know what happens to adjectives after a noun that is feminine. So let's go back up to our table. And it's very, very straightforward. So if I wanted to say the nice courtyard on close jas, that's all I have to say, on close jas. Put in my jas, fine. The nice hospital on Tuspedale jas. And the nice priest on Sogert jas. Lovely. So what's going to happen on the feminine side? Well, something different has to happen. So adjectives after a feminine word get H. So the nice kitchen would be on kitchen, yes. The nice magazine, doesn't really make sense, but let's go for it, would be on Irish, yes. And the nice week, which I hope we all have, is on Chochlin, yes. Okay, couple of things to be a little bit careful about here. So on Kishton, yes, let's have a look at that. The H in Kishton is there because of the on. So if the on wasn't there, if it wasn't still kitchen, if it was just kitchen, it would just be Kishton. And the H in yas is there because of Kishton being feminine. Okay, so if I got rid of on, it would be Kishton yas with a H. So the H in yas stays because the H in yas is there because of Kishton. Okay, so just want to make sure that that's clear. Now there's another thing that's a little bit complicated, right? Because we have a word like dealin, right? So dealin is a journal, and as we know, lon endings are feminine. But when it comes to gender, if I have N here and D there, my dentals are evime. So I do not put the H after for a consonant with that. So it's just on dealing. But here's where it gets a little bit confusing, because if I'm saying the nice journal, it's still on dealing, yes. Okay, because adjectives don't care about dentals, whereas nouns do. Okay, that might be a little bit confusing, but don't worry too much about it. Let's have a practice of these. We're going to do the first one together, and then I'll let you do the other ones on your own. So on brogue, jas. So brogue, we go through our feminine endings. Does it end with og? Well, yes, it does. So straight away, it's feminine. It's feminine, and it starts with a B, which is a consonant. So I go back up here to my table. It gets a H. I know that that's gone again, but it should be on Christian, so it gets a H. So on brogue becomes on brogue. Now, on brogue and then jas. It's feminine, so adjectives take a H. So on brogue, yes. We talked about this one already. It's on dealin, because with nouns, the dentals come into play, but with adjectives, the dentals don't. So it's still on dealin, yes. Right. Give you another few seconds to do the next three. So the answers will be shown in a tree, a doe, a hen. So on dawn, jas, dawn is masculine, and jas doesn't get a H because it's masculine. Antine, did anyone get confused with this one? So it does end with the consonant quail, but een is one of our exceptions. So antine is actually masculine, even though it means aunt. So it's on tantine, it's like on tuspedale, and jas does not get a H. On gruig, it ends with the consonant quail, so it's feminine. So on gruig gets a H, like on chisten, and yas also gets a H after a feminine word. So mashiv, well done, I hope that makes sense.